Greetings, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. Here I am on Red Square in Moscow. You may recognize it, seeing as it is one of the most renowned squares in the world. It's hard to remember that even 30 years ago, this was the center of the world for many people. Perhaps a quarter of the world's population was governed according to principles that emanated from Moscow. That's not to say that the governments of all communist or socialist states were taking orders from Moscow, but they broadly followed policies which had been pioneered here. And many people felt that the Soviet Union had built a new civilization and that its accomplishments were deeply impressive, such as abolishing illiteracy within a generation. I realized there was a side of it that was not quite so positive. Anyway, so much of Russia's history took place here. It's a square that's replete in history, and it's almost as though every stone has got its story to tell. So behind me you'll see one of the towers of the Kremlin. It's almost 2 miles in circumference, the Kremlin Wall. It means fortress, and that's why many cities have a Kremlin. This is the Moscow Kremlin, to be more accurate. There's the Senate building, which is late 19th century. Not that a legislative body actually meets there anymore, but that's the original name of it. And then on the horizon you can see the Cathedral of St. Basil the Blessed. It's known as St. Basil's Cathedral in English, but its real name is as long as your arm. Part of it's about the Dormition, because there are several churches that joined in one. You see, they've all got their own domes. Dormition is the Assumption. Catholics know it as the Assumption because Christians believe that the Blessed Virgin Mary was accorded the almost unique privilege of ascending into heaven alive. Catholics commemorate that on the 15th of August. So they're saying Dormition, as in dormir, to sleep. She fell asleep and went to heaven, didn't actually die. They said Assumption, people would know what they were talking about. And beyond that is the Moscow River, which meanders around, and there's the Moscow a great deal, and there's Bolchuga Island, as in Marsh Island, just south of that, on the north bank of the river. There you can see GUM, as in the State Universal Shop. So it's a shopping centre and dates well back to the Soviet era. But it's got lots of luxury brands in there right now, and a pedestrian street to my rear. Okay, this is another cathedral that was demolished in the 1930s, and it was reconstructed after the fall of communism because the communist system was actively anti-religious, formed the League of the Militant Godless, for instance, and it appropriated a lot of houses of worship of various religious denominations and turned them to other purposes, serving as granaries, theatres, and so forth. Anyway, here's the part of the State Historical Museum here, and as the plaque commemorates, it was from here that the Red Army launched its first attack in Moscow on the barons, as it calls them, the Junkerich, that's the whites, the counter-revolutionaries, who were a mixture of, some of them were Tsarist reactionaries, there were liberals, conservatives, and there were other types of socialist revolutionaries, who really were socialists but enemies of the Bolshevik nevertheless. So they don't celebrate the October Revolution anymore. There's a day of national reconciliation. What else was I going to point out about it? Well, I almost skipped past, there it is, in the distance, the Lenin Mausoleum. So he died on the 20th of January 1924, and this was built in double quick time, a wooden one first of all, and later rebuilt in granite and marble, as you can see there. So 1924 was shortly after Tutankhamun's tomb being opened by Howard Carter in Egypt, and that's why there was a mania for all things Egyptian, and which is why that Lenin was mummified and displayed in pharaonic style. Later, his sometime comrade Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin was laid to rest beside him. Though in 1961, a veteran communist, Madame Spiridonova, said that Vladimir Ilyich had appeared to her in a dream, saying that he disliked sharing his eternal home with Comrade Stalin, and would Comrade Stalin kindly be interred elsewhere. Well, he is laid to rest just behind his disciple Lenin. Well, the Victory Day Parade in 1945 was held here, and the 9th of May, Victory Day, is commemorated here ever since. There are big ice rinks here in the winter, and many national celebrations take place here. Well, that's enough for the moment from Red Square.